So here we are inside of Lightroom, and we have installed our Lightroom presets. And so I'm going to give you a brief overview of how I use them and how they're organized. First off, for those of you who are new to Lightroom, the presets that we've created or installed are all inside the preset panel on the left-hand side of the Develop module. They are also in the Library module. If you go over to the right-hand panel into the Quick Develop here, you can look for a saved preset here as well. So if you drop down that menu, you can see all of these preset menus here as well. So you can, if you're looking for something from the Quick Develop, you can obviously do it from here as well. So you can just simply look in here and find a setting, and then click on it, and it will change those settings. So that's just be aware that that's possible. But we mostly use them in the Develop module, and when we look over here, you see that they're collapsed. When you want to use presets that are in these folders, just click on the given triangle, open it up, and now you have a whole bunch of presets inside of here. You've received a disk of over 400 of them. So there are a lot of presets here. So just be aware that you got a lot of presets. You'll notice that there is one particular folder called Everyday Favorites here. Everyday Favorites is the ones that I use most often. So I really, it's about 50 or so presets that I use all the time. And they basically do most everything I need, and a lot of them are duplicates of items that are somewhere else. So, like for instance, there's some in the black and white here that I use all the time, and so I have duplicated them into the Everyday Favorites folder. And I suggest that if there's something that you use all the time, you also should take whatever you like the most and put it in the Everyday Favorites folder. And if there's something you never use that's in the Everyday Favorites folder, get rid of it. Because the idea behind these presets is to be as economical with your time as possible. So we want to use the Everyday Favorites the most, and then we'll go to the other ones if we're looking for something that's very specific to this photo that we want to do. When I am looking at a photo, so this is a given photo, the first thing I'm going to do is go in and normalize the photo so that it is adjusted the way I think it ought to look, at least like correct color balance, correct exposure, correct contrast. And then once I have the photo so that it looks correct to me, it's got the right normalization to it, at that point I'm going to go, I never go into the tone curve, HSL, split toning, detail, lens correction, effects, or camera calibration, because all of those things can be done inside of a preset. I just work on the basics, get it the way I like it, normalized, and then if I want to add something to it, let's say I want to add some kind of a film effect to it, now I'm going to go to the films and look for something to add to it. So I'll add a little grain to it, I'll add a medium contrast to it, and then I'll start messing around with it with some kind of a film effect, and now I'm done with this image and I'm ready to move on to some other image, because the look and feel of the image can be accomplished inside of one of these presets. So the film effects are great fun, play around with them, but again, there's a lot of them. So I would take your favorites and put them up into the Everyday Favorites so that you don't have to keep scrolling through the film pack all the time. Okay, let's go to a different image. So I'll take this image. So in this image, again, I'm going to normalize it. And this one doesn't need much normalizing, just a little bit of brightness, and bring the blacks down a little bit and the shadows down a little bit. And that's pretty good. Now, in this case, I may want to do some kind of, something from the Everyday Favorites here. For instance, maybe I want to add a little light sepia to it so that they warm up. And notice that the light sepia is not changing into black and white, because I may not want to add sepia to black and white. I might want to just keep it as because if I add black and white, now it's sepia black and white. But sometimes I just want to add sepia to kind of give it a warm glow, so I don't add black and white and sepia at the same time. They are separated out. So when you look at all the presets, no matter what presets you're looking at, they all do very targeted, simple little things so that you can click once or twice and be done with what you want done. In this case, I want to do a little bit of vignetting, so I'll come over here and do a wide, strong vignette. And that looks good, except I don't like the way it's doing a corner here and a corner here. So I'm actually going to undo that, and instead I'm going to go over here to the gradient tool. And in the gradient tool, because we've installed my presets, in the effect drop down right at the top of the gradient tool, and also the same is true in the brush tool, I drop that down and look at all the presets now that I have. So in this case, I'm going to do a blue sky burn, and I'm just going to drag from the top, and there's my blue sky burn. And what that's doing is it's burning it, but it's also adding a little extra blue into the sky. So it's burning the sky, getting it a little darker, and it's adding a little bit of extra color to the sky so that we get a nice blue sky. Then if I want to add some more darkness here so that we see the people in the boat a little bit better, I'm going to do this one as just a basic one-stop burn. Grab from this corner and then grab from this corner, and now that kind of pushes me up into their faces. And then I can also go to the brush, and on the brush I might want to brighten up that sail a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to choose a smart dodge for brighter things. And by the way, also as a bonus, you are getting the newest version. It's not available online yet of my tools. So you have far more tools than you would get if you purchased it online. So congratulations on that. These will be available online later, but they're not available yet online. So my smart dodge for, I want to do it for darker things, sorry. So I'm going to go over to here, and I'm going to brush brightness onto here, but I'm going to decrease my brush a little bit, and I'm also going to turn on the auto masking over here so that it's going to see that edge, and it'll only brighten up the sail, but not the sky. So I'm just going to start brightening here, and I've gone way overboard, but you get the idea. So that's way too much, but I can always come and grab onto the pin that represents that dodge, and you can, if you hover over it, you can see where the sail has gotten most of the treatment, and very rarely did it spill off into the sky. And if I want, I can go down here and I can show the mask overlay by clicking on that. And then I can come over to the brush tool and turn it to erase and still keep the auto mask on, but this time I'm just going to erase out of the sky. And then I'll come over here and do an erase out of the sky there. And then I'm going to turn off the auto mask and just kind of, it's always a good idea to just kind of clean up without the auto mask on, just to make sure that no artifacting remains. And then I can, from there, turn off the auto lay mask. Now you can see that it's much brighter. Now I'm going to go and hold on to the pin, and if I drag to the right, it increases the effect. If I drag to the left, it decreases the effect. So I'm just going to decrease it until it feels more natural. There. So, not only are there presets over here to save you time in trying to get the settings right, but there are presets over here in the gradient and in the brush tool to help you save time in getting the settings as well. So those are two really effective ways to save you time in working in the presets. Now, just as an overview on these presets, again, the everyday favorites is where you're going to spend most of your time, and I fully anticipate that you're going to delete some of these that you don't use, and you're going to copy some of these others and put them into the everyday favorites, or move them, whatever. But whichever ones you use the most, those should be in the everyday favorites. If you go into your black and whites, these are all black and white effects. The color is all color effects. Film grain gives you various film grains, and there's also a lot of removers. So anytime you're about, like in the black and white, you may add a bunch of sepia or whatever, but then when you come to the bottom, you'll see that there are not only grain removers, but also vignette and tone removers, so that you don't have to go over here to try and remove them. You can simply remove them from the presets where you instituted the adjustment in the first place. There's vignettes here. You have repair. The repair is mostly for noise issues, lens corrections, and then serious fringing issues. So those are just to kind of repair issues that are a result of problems in the photograph or whatever. Contrast and sharpening. I've got lots of tone curves here that are really great, so you can just choose, the tone curve that works for you. And then also there's point tone curves, which are also great, and they kind of they're unique because they sit underneath the tone curve. So you can institute a point tone curve, which is, I'll show you what that looks like. If you institute a point tone curve, it's like a Photoshop tone curve. You can actually create it here by clicking and dragging, and then once you turn that off, it remains, and then you can add to that point tone curve with a regular tone curve. So you can do a lot of additional tone curving as a result of using an underlying tone curve. So if you're aware of that, you can get some. Let's remove this. Okay, so just be aware that there are two different types of tone curves. The film pack is just a bunch of really cool film effects. I love film, so that's why they're there. And then the top secrets are a little bit more stylistic. Most of these, the JPEP, all of those are essential presets. They're mostly for workflow. And then when you come to the TS, the JPTS, those are top secrets. Top secret collection is very stylistic. So you get a lot more interesting things, like in the color, you get kind of these different types of I call them shanty town. They're like old school weird effects. So if you click on kind of a nostalgic look, you get kind of stranger looks, and they're a little bit more involved. You get some films and some different decades and some color shifts, and they're just more interesting effects. So it's less workflow, more play around with your image, have fun. In the effects, you get some glowing and some softness and bleaching and stuff like that. And then the toolbox is more for like super sharpening, super problems with edge defringing, and then lens correction issues. And then of course your vignettes are kind of stylistic vignettes, including some negative carriers. And when you're working on your negative carriers, be aware that there are vertical and horizontal versions. So if it's a vertical and you want to do your negative carrier, do the vertical. And also there's one for Lightroom 3 and one for 4 because they use different processes for this. So click on the Lightroom 4 vertical and you'll get that cool negative carrier look. So that's the basics on playing with these, but I encourage you just to get in and play around with things. You can't ruin an image in Lightroom because you can always come back over here and reset the image back to its original. So you can't ruin an image, so just get in there and start messing around and playing with it and clicking on different presets, and you'll get a feel for what they do and how they operate. Thanks again for purchasing the disc, and enjoy the presets.